more, right? Because I think at the end of the day, Web3 is here to stay. I'm 100% Web3 is here to stay. If not, I would cut my dick off, right? I think this is definitely here to stay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
GM. Karen, how are you doing this morning?
I am great. Welcome to the GM show. If you're new to the show, I want to say the ABCs of the show again is Asia focused, builder friendly, and cool vibes, only powered by Memeland, home of Captain's Potatoes, Steakland, and you're the real MVP. My name's Karen, and I'm your co-host as well as head of social for Memeland.
Hey, everybody. As you know, I am Casey. I am doing all kinds of Web3 ecosystem building, mentoring some new teams coming into and building some cool stuff. And, of course, doing the GM show with Karen, as we love to talk to founders and builders in the Web3 space. And we're broadcasting you live from Hong Kong, the home of Memeland, the home of Mochaverse, the home of a new ban on vaping, apparently. So, if you want to vape in Hong Kong, don't think about it. You're going to jail.
Exactly. If you're excited to be here, show off some emoji love. We're live on X, YouTube, and Twitch. If you want to hear like the audio only version, you can also go on X Spaces right now. So there are different ways to enjoy the show.
Yeah, that's right. So very good. Before we begin, though, let's hear a quick word from our chairman.
What is discussed on the GM show is not investment advice. We may or may not have ownership interests in the projects we are talking about, but this is not investment advice in any way, shape, or form. And this is not Sir David Attenborough.
All right.
Okay.
Great. Okay, before we get to our guest, I want a little chit chat with you first, Karen. So last week we played a panel, back-to-back 2 panels that we did at the Fort Conference, which I thought was great. So if you missed that episode, you can check it out from last time. I was traveling. I went to Austin, Texas for the Consensus 2024 event. As a lot of people don't know, it's the 10th anniversary. It's the CoinDesk's annual conference there in the U.S. It's moved around a couple of times. But just a couple of interesting points I wanted to explain to the audience. Well, first of all, it is leaving Austin next year, and it's moving to Toronto, Canada, as the main North American conference. And they're doing a new event in Hong Kong in February. So it'll be crazy back-to-back Web3 crypto events in Hong Kong starting next year. So February, I think it's the second week of February. You can check it out, Consensus website. As you probably know, CoinDesk is the big media company that's behind it, and they were bought recently by bullish.com, which is also semi-headquartered in Hong Kong. So you can see all the people, all the actions moving to Asia, so make sure you plan your calendar. Now, the other funny thing I was telling Karen before we got on the show that I wanted to share with everybody is I did a panel doing business in Hong Kong, right? So I had Yatsu, I had Edith Young, I had Michael from Bullish, and I had Adrian Lai from Newman on the panel. We're talking about this. We're not being paid by the government. We're just, we're bullish about Hong Kong. We want people to know what's going on in Hong Kong. But Adrian is hilarious. I was like, so what do you think of this conference? He's like, I can't believe it. There's more people in Hong Kong conferences and Singapore conferences than here in Austin. So it was like, I was like, whoa, okay, crazy. But he's kind of he's kind of right? It's just crazy to see the shift in excitement from obviously the States with their regulatory issues on crypto, and how Vietnam last week is huge, and then all these other events. And we're planning for IVS Crypto in Kyoto in Japan, right? So there's like so many things going on here. It's just wonderful to see. What else is on the calendar, Karen? Besides,
I think the next like half of this year is all Asia focused, really, because it's IVS in Kyoto, and then there's Korea Blockchain Week, there's Token in Singapore, and there's also Taipei Blockchain Week as well. So it's all gonna be Asia focused for sure.
Amazing. Okay, so as usual, we do like to try to focus the GM show more on Asian founders and builders, and so today we're very excited to have him on. He's one of the Asian voices on YouTube that does some amazing shows covering other founders, other projects. He's doing a little bit of shilling himself. It's pretty cool, but he has his own project now. We're going to talk about it. But you've probably heard of the Parallax. It's one of the most popular Web3 NFT YouTube channels covering news, project analysis, and his hosts thought-provoking podcasts with some of the most influential builders in the space. Now he's launching something called Moon Zero. It is an anime and IP launchpad, an entertainment ecosystem that creates the highest quality media, merchandise, and gaming experiences. Moon Zero will produce Web2 related IP and leverage that into Web3 to create opportunities for the community and incubate and accelerate projects and build the ecosystem. Karen, who's our guest today?
He is the content creator with over 220,000 YouTube subscribers and over 10,000 students, 100,000 students. Previously worked in Oracle and Lob, a YC-backed startup. Founder of the Parallax, one of the top Web3 NFT YouTube channels. And recently, the founder of Moon Zero, a new community-driven entertainment ecosystem focusing on accelerating IP-related Web3 projects. Please welcome to the GM show, Patrick Dang.
I love it. You guys make me look good. I appreciate that.
That's a compliment from a fellow content creator for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I love it.
Patrick, who is setting up your YouTube studio? Is it David Fincher or Christopher Nolan? I want to know. It looks amazing. You look like you're in a movie.
He's like the Web3 villain.
I mean, we got a team, right? So, they do a really good job setting this up. And I always try to bring the quality into Web3, especially when I started. Not a lot of people were, using DSLRs and good lighting.
Right.
And so, trying to play a part in leveling us up as an industry,
Awesome.
Yeah, you sound great and you look great. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you've got the drink.
Yeah.
You've got the drink as well. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a cappuccino.
Nice.
Yeah, I made it. Yeah, I have a cappuccino machine at home, so I can get
nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
You are based in Vietnam, and I think last week you were you're hosting one of the biggest shows out here in Asia, GM Vietnam, the Vietnam Blockchain Week. Any insight? How did it go?
Yeah, so right now we're in the middle of GM Vietnam, right? So it's still going on. It's only been like a day so far, but so far it's good. Like a lot of people from Japan, Singapore, a lot of like people in Asia come into Vietnam. Whereas before, like 2 years ago or a year ago, it wasn't as poppin' as it is now. So it's crazy to see like before I didn't meet anyone from Japan coming to Vietnam. Now they all want to come. So
Why?
I think
What happened?
I mean, we're getting into the bull market. I think that's the first one, right? So people are excited. They're trying to make connections, trying to do deals. But also, I think Vietnam as a hub has gained more traction as like a crypto place where people want to go. A lot of people setting up dev shops here and stuff. So yeah.
Amazing. All right, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Karen.
A lot of people are also looking into hiring a lot of talents in Vietnam too. So maybe we have that to talk about like what's your hiring requirements. But let's get into it. So the first question is, what's the one app you have on your home screen that not many people do?
I would say the one app I have is probably Aura. You know Aura Ring? Yeah, so it's a sleep tracker. So I use it every night to track my sleep. I mean, it's popular, but not everybody kind of does it.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to energy and just like being a productive person, sleep is actually where it all starts. So I think it's kind of underrated to get good sleep. Like I know founders in Web3, they're like, oh my God, like I don't get any sleep. But for me, I'm getting 8 hours every night. I'm rested. I'm ready to go.
Nice.
Love to hear that. It's awesome. Okay. Next question. What is something that has greatly influenced your life? It could be a person, a book, a film, an anime series. We don't know. What is something that's greatly influenced your life?
Right. I would say, what's a big influence in my life? The biggest influence was back in high school. It was my calculus AP teacher, because at the
Wow.
time I actually failed calculus AP, like literally like 40%. I got an F in
Nice.
the class. And then she was like, hey, I wanted to drop out of that class.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, you should stay, you should do another semester of it. I'm like, why? Yeah, I'm literally failing. And then she's like, no, I think you can do it. And then I believed in her and I kept going at it. And then ended up getting a 5 out of the AP, which is like the highest score you can get.
Wow.
Wow.
So I went from failing to learning the whole book in 2 months, getting a 5 on the AP. And I was like, oh shoot, like if I can do that, I can do anything. So that gave me a lot of confidence to like do
Wow.
other things in the future. Yeah.
I
So
failed algebra twice and I gave up. I just never went back.
Maybe
yeah.
Patrick should do like a channel with like how to pass AP or get
Yeah.
a 5.
I used to speak at that high school. Like as I got older, I would come back and tell my story and be like, yo, like you think your grades are bad, mine was worse. But here's
Wow.
how I was able to like, do
Very
well.
cool.
So
That's the exact like kind of inspirational speaker a school needs.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Next question is, what is the best investment you've ever made and what were the returns?
like
You've
financial.
been interviewing a
It could be
lot of
anything, right?
Yeah, it could be
Like,
anything. It could be financial. It could
Yeah.
be
Okay, so
time, energy.
it's education, to be honest. Like learning how to sell was probably the best investment I've made, right? In terms of spending time learning it. So like like selling specifically, like I started my career as a sales rep at Oracle. So it's selling technology, HR software. And at that time I would listen to like audio tapes, read a bunch of books and like all these kind of things. So once I developed the skill of selling, I realized that you can sell anything. And no matter what happens, if you can sell, you will always be able to make money. So in terms of return on investment, like, yeah, that's the one,
Nice. Okay.
That's very interesting. Like we have a lot of founders coming on and say like their first or like the first job that they had was like a telemarketer or like a door-to-door salesman. A lot of
Yeah.
people came from
Yeah,
a
dude,
sales.
I was cold calling. Hey, how's it going? It's Patrick from Origo. How you doing today? Like it's but it teaches a lot of character, it teaches you rejection, it teaches you how to be good with people.
Yeah.
So I think it's a skill that I think everybody should learn if they want to develop leadership skills. Yeah.
Yep, for
Good
sure.
Next question is, who is
Mhm.
someone you're inspired by and why? It could be a tech person, it could be a creator, it could be your parents. What's somebody who's inspired you?
One person that I got to know a little bit over time was actually David Massel. I'm not sure if you know him, but he started Marvel Studio back in the day.
Oh yeah.
So I actually had a chance to meet him because he actually watches the Parallax, and he was explaining to me like how he back in those days he went to Marvel. He pitched them like, hey guys, you got to create your own movies, and then they started with Iron Man and stuff, right? And I was like, really? Like you went to Marvel and you pitched them that, and they agreed, and they funded that movie, right? Which you are the CEO of this new company.
Yeah.
And so when I kind of heard your story, I was like, yeah, like if you really put your mind to something, you can like really do it. And so that part of it is the inspiration behind Moon Zero, because after I met him, it like opened my mind to like what's possible. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm
So
reading
shout out
that book
David.
on the MCU, and it
Yeah.
goes really granular on his things. Everybody thinks Kevin Feige is the main guy, but this David guy, he's the guy that got all the money for the first 3 movies that they made, and they
Right. Yeah.
put a lot of capital behind it in terms of if the movies failed, the bank would get like to keep the characters and be able to sell them to somebody else to make up the money, which is crazy
Right.
kind of gambling on these
Right.
things, right?
Yeah. It's like in history, when you look at who is responsible for what, it's a bit murky because like people will say different things. But yeah, in the end, like Marvel turned out like a pretty good investment. They got acquired and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So shout out David.
Okay, so here's the hard question, I think. What is the one conventional wisdom that you disagree with?
I would say it would follow your heart. So this is it's not it sounds conventional. It sounds like, oh, if you feel it, you should do it. But it's I don't think you should do it all the time, because there are balances, right? Because if you follow your heart, does that mean you're going to be financially successful all the time? Maybe not. And if you're not financially successful, can you take care of your family? Maybe not. So now you just look selfish, right? So I think following your heart is important in terms of like fulfillment, but also balancing responsibility and providing for others is even more important, right? So I think too many people follow their heart and they end up very selfish, and they'll justify like, hey, like I could do whatever I want. If I want to travel the world and do this, I can. But being someone that people can rely on is also very noble, right? So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a very responsible investor advice.
What's a responsible investor advice? Get in early. Yeah, because like in crypto, it's like, a lot of people who do well aren't necessarily like traders, right? They're at the right place at the right time. They know the right people, or they're maybe in the right group chats, and they're early. So when you're early, you don't have to be as good. You just have to just be there, especially in crypto. Like be early. Yeah.
Great. All right. So you've talked to a lot of founders and yourself, and you're a founder now. What is one piece of advice you would give to a first-time founder that's entering into Web3 today?
Today, huh? I would say think bigger. Yeah, because I think people have to realize that in Web3, you can go from literally a nobody to a somebody very quickly, like 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, right? Like there are people who DM'd me like a year and a half ago. They're like, hey, Patrick, like I want to create content for you. I want to write threads and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And literally a year later, they're blowing up, doing their own thing.
Yeah.
So, if you're someone who's trying to make it, know that it's possible. You know what I mean? Like I came into crypto with like no experience, no nothing, like 2 years ago, no followers on YouTube, and just made a name for myself a little bit. And I think anyone new can do it. You can really like start from nothing and become something really quick.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think, and also like at this time we have YouTube and X and whatever social distribution channels that maybe 20 years ago we didn't have, right? So having to build up a fan base or a following base would be really difficult. But today, yeah, you get out there, if it's good and you know what people like, I think it's easier to grow from there than ever before.
Right. And I would say from a content creator perspective, right? Because that's kind of where I come from. It's never been easier to be a Web3 content creator. Like literally, if you are a nobody and you're just like, okay, I'm going to talk about games. I'm just going to talk about like what's happening, what's launching, these tokens. You will get a following like pretty quickly if your content is like even just decent, not even great, because the bar is not the highest, right? And brands, when they look at that, even if you're a couple thousand followers, like they see you as something. So yeah, you could be an influencer like overnight, and you don't even have to be that big. Like you can make a good living being a niche influencer, and that might be better than your regular job is,
Right.
I want to know if you have a piece of advice for a first-time content creator if they want to step into this industry. Like, what's the one thing that
buy a good camera?
Buy a good camera. I mean, it helps, like it's like branding is aesthetics, right? It shows people like you're professional. But when it comes to like content creation itself, I would say like it's pretty simple. You just gotta think about what kind of content creators you like and emulate, right? So it doesn't even have to be in Web3. Like when I started on YouTube, I wasn't even looking at any Web3 content creators. I'm always looking at Web2 because they had like better production quality, is more interesting and stuff like that. The way they edit is better. So look for Web2 influences and apply it to Web3, and then like you're a god, right? That's like kind of how it is, right? Like for a GameFi project, if you took like a decent Web2 game and put it into Web3, that's probably the best Web3 game ever, right? It's the same with content creation. Like it could be like if you're a Twitch streamer and you're not really getting that many views, but you switch to GameFi, now you're top dog, right? So I would say just emulate Web2, bring it into Web3. People will perceive it as something fresh and new, and then you're ahead. That's pretty much the game.
Yeah.
It's like arbitrage, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Good.
Okay, so what is the worst piece of advice you ever received?
The worst piece of advice that I ever received. I remember it was in university. There's I got paired with a mentor so I went to USC, right? And I was in this program where they pair you with like a successful person. And then I was telling the guy like, oh yeah, I'm really into like fashion and streetwear and like these kind of things. And this guy was like a banker, and he's like, nah, like you can play around when you're young, but when you want to make the real money, like you got to do this thing, right? Now, of course, like finance does make a lot of money. He's not wrong, but at the same time, he wasn't like open to, being successful in other avenues, which you can be. So I think it was not the greatest advice because it made other avenues look like they weren't good, but actually they are still good. It's just based on his own personal experience, right? And I think, if someone's mentoring another person, I think they should be more open to different possibilities, not just how they made it, right? Because everyone has different skills, personalities, interests. Yeah.
He's also a bad dad, I heard. Just kidding. All right. You gotta be open. You gotta be open to different ideas. All right.
Yeah.
So if you're saying he's in Southern California, then that's another thing. Okay.
Yeah, SoCal actually. Yeah.
Right. So you think they have a bit more of an open mind, but I guess not.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I mean, yeah, it is what it is. But
okay, let's get into some questions about Web3. So you have a Web2 background, and how did you get into Web3? What is the radioactive spider that bit you?
Right. So I have Web2 background. I was doing YouTube before the parallax and all that stuff on my regular channel. It was just called Patrick Dang, doing sales content, B2B sales.
Oh,
so what got me into YouTube, crypto, was actually crypto videos on YouTube. So it was like Alex Becker, Elio Trades, like these kind of guys talking about crypto punks and tokens and stuff. I was never interested too much back then about the tokens. What really got me in was the NFTs, because that was when I was like, oh, like it's kind of things I'm interested in. It's like art, it's like fashion, these kind of things, but on crypto, and people are making money, right?
Yeah.
So so I started watching some videos, and then I remember this one guy, KG. He's still pretty active now. He was like talking about CyberKongs and like their VX drop. This is like if you're an OG or whatever, like you kind of know what I'm talking about. And then I was like, oh shoot, I want to buy one, and then it was like I bought a baby CyberKong, which was like 6K at the time, to get an airdrop, which was the VX and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, you're printing money. And yeah, so that's how I got into it. And then during that time, it was because my first one was a CyberKong. I'm not sure if you guys know, but like back then they were like one of the first alpha groups of people talking about like, oh, what to buy for NFTs. So then fortunately that was my first one, and I got exposure to like more deeper discussions versus just like, oh, this is gonna pump. And then did pretty okay trading, like trading like cool cats and like stuff that like ran up pretty well. So that's how I got into space, like CyberKongs. Yeah.
Great. So that's segue to the next question. You talk about CyberKong as your first NFT. So what did you learn from it, and do you still own it?
Yeah, so I don't own it. I sold it. What I learned from it, I mean, the alpha group itself, it's just like knowing how narratives go. So like it'll be like, yo, what's minting today, guys? And then they'll just say, oh, like fancy foxes are minting, and they all mint, and it just like pumps up the price. And I was like, yo, like that's pretty crazy,
Yeah.
So learning how that game kind of works, and then also learning like, okay, so I round tripped that specific CyberKong. So like it went from like 6K to like 6DK, and then back to 6K. You know what I mean? So it's like, dude, when it went to 60K, we're all like, yo, it's going even higher, 100K.
Right.
But it didn't, So I learned that even if you're really bullish on a project, like if it's up a lot, like it's okay to sell. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Especially moving into the next, like I guess we're probably going to another bull run. And I got some bags too, and it's like, yes, with that experience, it's like if something is up like that much, then it's cool to sell. It's not really a big deal, right?
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Nice.
All right. And then the last question in this segment is what is one misconception about Web3 that you'd like to change? So the public has a lot of things to say. The media has a lot of things to say about Web3. What's something that you hear repeatedly? You think, you know what? I want to change the way people think about this.
One thing that I've been thinking deeply about is sustainability in Web3, right? So I talked to like gaming studios and stuff in Web2, and they, want to break into Web3, and they're always like, oh no, Web3 is not sustainable, right? But if you think about it, in a way, gaming is also not sustainable. Why? Because you're using consumer income. So if a game makes, let's say, like $10 million a year, right? It's not like people aren't investing in assets. They're actually just selling skins or whatever the case is, and you're just taking their money and putting it in your pocket, and you're giving them a skin and an experience, right? So is that sustainable? It depends on the perspective. So in Web3, it's like, I guess most people in it right now, they're trying to make money. But one thing I think will change in the future is like, what if crypto was able to tap into consumable income, where people don't expect a return on investment, but they expect a good experience. They expect to flex. Can you give them that? And so then you can change the perspective of like, is crypto sustainable? Maybe it doesn't have to be, right? So I think that's a potential future, but we'll have to see how the markets go,
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the business stuff.
Let's
The
do it.
real business. So after running Parallax for 2 years now,
Right.
you are actually building a new project.
Right.
So talk to us about it. What are you building right now?
Right. So I'm building Moon Zero right now. And, long story short, Moon Zero is basically like an anime IP gaming launchpad focused on accelerating and growing other projects. So how do we, let's start with like, starting with the Parallax.
Some war video.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite short. We'll have to play it again.
Yeah. Play. Hey, let's go.
All right. Look, that's cool.
Wow. Look at
Yeah.
that.
So so that's a little anime teaser we have on our Twitter. So let's start from the beginning, right? We'll start with the Parallax, and then we move into like how we got into Moon Zero. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So when I started the Parallax back then, that was like, it was like a thunderstorm outside. Not sure if you can hear, but like literally a thunderstorm. Basically, it started as like a YouTube channel, right? And so the NFT, the Parallax Genesis, was used kind of like a community, like an NFT for a community to build this like media company. But then over time, what ended up happening was, because I launched the Parallax and because people trusted me as, I guess, like a thought leader on YouTube, they came for me for advice, right? And so this actually organically started kind of like an advisory business where I help people with their marketing, essentially, to launch their projects. And so over the years, I've helped quite a number of names in the space that, some people might know. And, they all found success with my advice. So I was like,
Ray
okay.
Chan, right?
What?
You had Ray Chan on your show.
Oh, yeah. Like on the show itself, we had a lot of people like Ray Chan, Julio from Pixelmon, Elroy from Arc, like a lot of these like top founders, they come on the show, right? So go with advising, it was going really well. And then I was like, okay, how do I combine what I'm doing with advising with like something new coming up for this next run? So I was like, okay, how do I, well, for me, my strength is really marketing, creating narratives, getting people interested in a product, right? And other teams are really good at things like building a game or dev work or whatever the case is. But a lot of times they actually lack in that marketing skill set. Like how many times have we seen builders build, but then they don't tweet? And it's like, wait, what are you guys doing, guys? No one's going to buy your stuff. Yeah. So my solution to them is like, okay, like I'll work with you guys as a growth partner to get the word out there because your product is so good. But let's do it through my launchpad. And then we kind of reward the community in some creative way. And so that way I can do advising and partnering with people, accelerating them, but at the same time, bringing a community with me. So there's more leverage as a company. And also it's just more exciting when you do things as a community versus just like as one entity or alone or with a small team. Yeah. And I think in the future, like there's creative ways to get more people involved, not just as a passive participant holding, but also like, what if they actually want to work in this space? A lot of people need mods. A lot of people need KOL management. Like there's so many things you can do,
Right.
Yeah. So specifically for Moon Zero, it's about IPs and anime. Like, so how did that, where's that idea from?
Right. So For me, I mean, I'm just naturally into anime, gaming, IP, fashion, music, those kind of things, right? So I found that when I advise projects who are related to those things, my effectiveness is just much higher because like I know, all the gaming references, I know all the animes, I know like, I can pull from these things and then apply it to Web3, right? Like I can look in like what was cool in the 90s and create a new story for 2024. I mean 2024. Yeah. Whereas like I have advised like more protocols and like tokens and like layer twos, and it does work, but it's just there's something different when you're in a meeting, you're like, hey, Naruto did this and it was really cool, and let's apply it over here. Like that's more interesting. And so there's going to be a lot of people who do marketing for companies like just in the space is going to keep coming. And for me, it's like if I specialize on this type of market, which I have a very strong specialty in, it's hard for people to compete. So my goal is like when like a Sega or a Konami or something like that, when they're thinking about, hey, like maybe we want to do an NFT project, maybe we want to do a GameFi project, who are they going to go to? I want them to come to me and be like, hey, Patrick, like let's talk. We're curious to know what you think. And so that can like start the relationship. And I think right now I don't think there's any like accelerator that I know of, at least focused on that kind of niche. So there's a chance to be like a big player moving forward, especially. I think of it long term, right? It's not like a 6-month project. It's like to build these relationships with these large companies. They're thinking like multiple years in the future. And that's how I see my career. Like I'm doxxed. I use my real name. Like if I do anything wrong, like everybody knows who I am, right? So yeah, I want to do it the right way.
Okay, that's good. That's
Wow.
good. Okay, you've kind of already discussed why did you start it, but maybe you talk a little bit about why is the anime industry so interesting to Web3 people? Is it just the age range, or do you think that it's a highly Asia-based group of people? Like what is the connections so strong about with these two, rather than like we've seen a lot of American cartoon stuff go online, but there's no connection there as there is more with anime.
Yeah, I think like you guys said in the beginning of the show, it's like in crypto, it's like Asia is a really big player in it, whether it's China, Singapore, Southeast Asia, Japan, like they're all looking at crypto. And I think in the US, there's, of course, crypto is popular, but then like this whole anime kind of niche is like really popular for Asians, Yeah. And also not just for people in Asia, but also in America, where anime in general globally is becoming one of the biggest like entertainment categories, like on Netflix and other platforms, right? So I think it's just kind of inevitable that anime becomes more and more popular. So yeah, does that answer your question in terms of like why anime? Like it's just a big industry, everybody loves it, it's growing, like it's kind of a place to be. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Right. But I would also add, one thing I would also add is like, if you look at the NFT projects for even the last like 2 years, right, including 2024, anime is one of the biggest categories for NFT launches, right? Like even Memeland, you guys are very anime inspired. And if you look at the launches that happened this year, the ones that are like multi-million-dollar launches, like half of them are anime, right? So there's something to it that people want to spend money on anime versus just like a regular cartoon or something like that.
There's a and also the tokens are getting involved, right? There's an anime token, there's a manga token, and I think there's an isekai token. I don't know.
Is there? I haven't heard of that one, but
there's all kinds of crazy tokens coming out, so you don't hear them about other ones. So sounds good, sounds interesting. We'll keep an eye on it with you.
So like you've been started off with this new project for a while now. So what's the one lesson you learned so far? You started with a community now, like you're on Discord. So this is something that's purely like your own project.
Right. So what is the question exactly? Like what's one thing I've learned, or?
Yeah, what's the one lesson you learned so far?
The one lesson I've learned, me personally as a founder, is to really lean on the expertise of other people, because it's like, like sometimes you feel like you want to do everything yourself, and maybe you can do it yourself, but it's like when you look at another person who spent like, let's say 5 years of their life, like doing something specific, like art direction, they're going to know a lot more about art direction than you. Right.
Yeah.
So the thing I've learned is like, but on the caveat to that is that maybe they're art director in Web 2, but maybe they don't know how to translate those kinds of cool things into Web 3 because it's a little bit different, right? Like you can't just get like a famous manga artist from one place and put him in Web 3, it'll be successful. It doesn't work that way. So for me, I've learned that to work with other people in Web 2 who are very talented, which, you know, we have some talented people on our team, you have to understand their strengths and you have to guide them to kind of teaching them what kind of works in Web 3, right? Like not a lot of artists know what a good PFP should look like, for example.
Yeah.
Right. And PFP is really hard to do, like a good one. And so, yeah, that's a big lesson. Like lean on their skills, but guide them into the space. Yeah.
So how big is the team right now? So you have the animation team, you have your Launchpad team. How does it work right now?
Yeah. So the team is mainly made of basically like marketers and creative people, right? So from a Launchpad perspective, what we focus on is really that, right? It's art and marketing, right? Because like if you look at an NFT project, like what is it at the end of the day? It's good art, good videos, good splash art, good PFP, and then really good marketing. And then whatever happens after, you can swap out, right? Whether you want to be a game, you want to be an IP, you want to sell products in stores, all those things can be swapped. And a lot of times you have to change it because the market changes, right? As a startup. Yeah. So I focus on the things that are very core, which is marketing and art. And that's the team composition. So like artist wise, you know, we have someone that worked on, used to work at Riot Games, who did a lot of the Runeterra art for the cards.
Yeah.
So like pretty high level. Animations, we work with different studios. So it's like we have like a creative team in-house that comes up with all the ideas, like the brain, right? And then we go to different animators depending on what we need. And then we kind of creative direct their people to, you know, do the work, right? Because to create an animation, it's a lot. You need like a whole studio to do it, right? So we're not an animation studio. We're more like a brain that taps into different studios, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So creatively, we can like kind of do anything as long as our brain is there. So it's like it's more like a creative brain. So it's like a lean team. But yeah.
Great. All right. Here's the big question we're going to drop on you. We just saw this great animation we played, but Patrick, what is the alpha?
The alpha. What is the alpha? The alpha, it's always been the parallax genesis. That's the alpha. Yeah, I just put it that way. Yeah, because like for Moon Zero, right? Like obviously it's something new and we're, you know, planning to work with a lot of companies and you know, go as big as possible. But also like with the parallax, you know, it still exists. It's still a community that's going, and that's actually the core supporters of Moon Zero, the parallax holders. And so these are things that I plan to integrate deeply with each other. Right. So it's not like I'm trying to start like two companies at the same time. It's more like it's the evolution of what the parallax can be. Yeah. So that is alpha.
But what is that animation clip we showed? That is a teaser of something that you're creating, an IP that you're creating, or what is that exactly?
Yeah, I'll share with you some of the thoughts behind that.
Yeah.
Which I haven't. So I mean, this is a little alpha, right? So these characters that we're creating, and I actually made a YouTube video on not YouTube, X video on my personal account explaining these characters and how we made them and stuff with character sheets. So in Web3, like what is interesting to me is that to, you know, make something interesting, having a Web2 narrative is important, right? So like if you do something mildly successful in Web2, you can say, hey, you know, we're in these stores, or our characters in this webtoon or this anime or whatever, right? Even if that thing doesn't even make any money, you know, that story is very powerful bringing it into Web3. And we've seen many brands do this. So for me as a Launchpad, one differentiator is that, you know, like I'm doing the things for Moon Zero that I want to do for others, you know? So if I make this trailer, how can someone trust me that, oh, like Patrick can make something cool? Because I did it for myself. Right? Or if I make cool splash art, I did it myself. Or PFP, did it myself, right? So there's more, like I have skin in the game. You know what I mean? I'm not just pretending like, oh, like I'm a marketing agency that came out of nowhere. It's like, I'm really doing this, you know? And I think we plan to do more with the IP. Although our focus is more on the Launchpad side. Like if you do some things in IP that are mildly successful, that creates a lot of leverage when you go to another Web2 brand, you say like, hey, like I did it just like you did, and here's how we used it. Do you want to do something similar? So it's like, I want to make long-term thinking, I want to put myself in a position where when people think about working with me, through the Launchpad, that there's no other alternative. Either they want to work with Moon Zero or they just don't want to do it at all. Like that's the ultimate goal, right? And so I think we can actually do that. And like how many other like Launchpads are like trying to like do this anime stuff, right? And when you actually do it yourself and you work on the animations, like so like when I advise someone like, hey, like I think you should do a 10-second animation like this, and we're going to save costs by doing these kind of things, like I really know, versus another person that will just say like, oh, like we can just outsource it to another agency, right? And it's that intimate touch that makes a difference, I feel.
Yeah, that's very strong. I think, well, from in your opinion, then, like, what's a strong IP now in 2024? Like, what do they need if you're like marketing for someone now?
Yeah,
like in Web 2 or Web 3?
In Web 3.
What is a strong IP now? I think it's all relative to competition, I feel. So you just got to look at what the landscape is and just think like, is your stuff like fresher? Is it better? Are you presenting your things in a unique way, right? So like, I'll give you an example. Let's say I put out this teaser that's like a 5-second teaser, right? It's like pretty cool. So actually what ended up happening was a lot of people hit me up who are decision makers at certain projects, and they're like, hey, yo man, I saw your teaser, like let's get on a call. And then they'll be like, hey, like how do I do that myself? And then basically I start pitching them like, hey, like I actually have this Launchpad, and like, so my thesis of like, if I put it out first, like will people come? They do. They actually, literally the first week, they do come. And as I started to tweet more publicly and talk about all these experiences I've had in IP and thoughts, like, if I look at my DMs, it's like, it's kind of like increasing with people reaching out, wanting to talk about IP, including like protocols too. So yeah, it actually works. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
So now, like, do you also help like people set up the teams? Because like we also talked about like what are the type of talents that we want to hire in this space. So like, what would you advise them if they were to put into a team?
Right. It depends on where they're at, right? So some people I'm talking to, they, already raised money, they already have a team, but they maybe lack on the narrative side, maybe the KOL side, maybe the animation side. So we can help them there. But other teams where it's like, it's an idea, right? Or maybe it's a project that already exists, but they want to come back, right? Those are conversations I'm having. There's not much of a team there, right? And so it always depends on the situation. But I would say for most like IP gaming related projects, it's really just like good aesthetics, good marketing. And then if you're going to do a game, then obviously you need the game, right? But on the front of what people see, it's really aesthetics and marketing, right? Yeah,
Right.
I think that's the real key. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so let's get into the last question.
Right.
How do you see the future of anime industry in Web3? Like, let's say the next 6 months.
Right. In the next 6 months. That's so quick, right? I would say
Japan is so slow, and more like next 6 years.
Right. I would say you're not going to see a lot of Web 2 anime brands coming into Web 3 yet in those next 6 months, because the process of it seems to be pretty difficult. So that actually opens a big opportunity for new IPs to exist. So if you're like a anime project founder, like now is the time, because you're not going to get much competition from any of the big guys. And even if they try to come in, and I've talked to some of them, they actually need a lot of help, So it will be a while before they come in a big way. So new IPs can come in, like now is the time. But these larger companies are also creating new IPs, well, specific for Web3, and they're still having trouble too. So like, I think if you're a really native Web3 team, you understand crypto, you understand NFTs, the next 6 months is basically like your time to flourish. And I think, whenever ETH goes up and there's like more of a bull market, or people are more bullish, I think you're going to see like a lot of these kind of projects pop up. Yeah.
What do you think of Azuki's anime project?
Like in general?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a fan. I hold a Azuki, or the OG Azuki. I think what they're doing is good for like helping it helps legitimize the crypto space a little bit, because like if they work with Adetsu and stuff, or I'll put it in a different way. When I did the Parallax NFT art 2 years ago, I hit up 100 people in like from different freelancers, studios, and stuff. Right, literally 100 people on my list. Only one person said yes to help me on the art, because at the time in Japan, nobody wanted to touch NFTs. Now, literally, all the big studios are down to work on projects. They're like, yo, if you're willing to pay, like, you know, we can get you this guy, this guy, this guy.
Why?
Whatever,
What was
right?
the problem before? They don't want to do it because it has a bad name?
They didn't want to associate something that could potentially be a scam.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. It's just
And it's not a scam anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, they learned their lesson. They were definitely right on that.
Right. So yeah, nowadays it's they're more open to it. There a lot of these studios are down to work because I think they see Detsu doing it, they see, and all these other studios are having conversations. So now it's more open, right? And
only 2 years later, they caught up with it.
Yeah. And
right?
a lot
2
of
years.
Yeah, to be fair, like a lot of these studios like work as like they want to be like outsourced studios too. So you know, the funny thing about Web3 I realized is like most projects outsource everything anyways. Like a game could be outsourced, art could be literally everything could be outsourced nowadays. So these companies are like open for business, and I think that opens a whole talent pool for a lot of creators if you can build the right connections to get inside.
Nice.
You know. Yeah, but you still need, like, if you want to work in Japan, like you still need a Japanese connect. Like you need someone that speaks Japanese. So it's not as easy as just like emailing them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Dear One Piece creator team, I have an idea. Would you like to make my Web3 anime?
Right. It doesn't work like that. But I mean, what actually helps, if, you know, for founders like watching this, is like, for me at least, just going to in-person events is like the hack. You know, like I've met a lot of people in the Japanese scene just from going to Japan and just tweeting, hey guys, I'm going to be in Japan for a couple of days, you know, hit me up, DMs are open. And that's how I made all my connections. Like somebody just cold DM'd me. He said like, yo, like I'm going to be in Japan, let's get a coffee. No idea who he was. And then that particular person opened a lot of doors for me in Japan, right? So going to physical events, like in-person events, is like, I think that's like one of the best alphas for a founder.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome.
I run tech conferences, so I definitely agree with that one. You just got to be out there. You never know who your next customer or investor or co-founder might be out there. Yeah, very cool.
True.
Yeah. I have another question about, like, you said you had some previous conversation with animation studios. What are some of the challenges that they have going into Web3 and having their own projects?
Like animation studios coming in? Yeah. So I've talked to some big ones that actually did launch some stuff. I won't say who it is, but I'll just like generally I'll mix it all together so nobody knows. The first is, like, if you think about who's running the projects, it's very interesting, right? So in Japan, the work culture is very different than it is in America. So someone might be working at a large studio for like a decade, right? And they're like a director level. And then what ends up happening is like Web3 becomes a thing, and they'll say, hey, let's do a spin-off, and let's, you know, you can invest in it. And I'm the director, but I'll be the new CEO of this new company, right? And so it's like a director trying to make a name for themselves, pretty much, because it's hard to climb up a ladder. You can go laterally, right, and become the boss. So you see a lot of that. And the challenge is like, well, that person was never really Web3 native. They were just considered a salaryman, and then now they're the CEO, right? And so they're going to have a hard time getting into the space and understanding how it works. So, you know, when they have that Web 2 approach of like, hey, we got the best artists, whatever, let's just make something and sell it, it doesn't work because they don't have the culture. And that's part of why Moon Zero exists, because from my experience advising people and talking to these companies, like they really need help. And even if they hire even if they hire an international, like non-Japanese creative director, I've seen this before, that creative director who's like super experienced in anime and stuff, when they come into Web3, it just doesn't work. So, you know, so Moon Zero kind of exists for that, because we can basically help we can be the creative director's creative director, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know, just, guiding them in. And, I mean, you see with animations and stuff, and because like you can take the same, like, even if it's like a studio that just does animations for other people, right? You can take the same studio, but swap out who the project is and who the lead is, creative lead, and the quality be totally different. You might get something like super cheap. You can have the best animators who did like Demon Slayer, Fate Stay, and all that stuff. But if you don't have the right creative direction, it just looks cheesy.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen this. So having that creative brain and knowing how to take those skills and apply it into Web3 in a particular way is super, super, super valuable. Because the hands, if you think about it, hands can be replaced, right? AI is coming around too, so they can really be replaced. So what's the most valuable moving forward? It's the brain, it's the ideas, it's understanding culture. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very, very, it's a dedicated topic about like aesthetics for animation, because like you have to have a taste of what's good anime,
Right.
and have that like growing up, and also have having developed an aesthetic for yourself to able to judge and give advice to.
Right. It takes a lot of I mean, I'm not saying like I'm the best at it, but like for me, before I started working on the art for Moon Zero, like I spent a lot of time like learning this. I took a class on how to direct an anime film and like these kind of things, right? So it's not easy to learn, to be honest, but like once you have a base knowledge of how things work, it's much easier to guide people. And I think more teams should probably pay attention to that, because it's going to get more and more competitive, right? Like, like in the past, like any anime, like if you look at like 2 years ago, like what anime projects are coming out, you're just like, why did people buy this? So it's going to get more competitive. All this talent's coming in. So now, because everyone can get really good hands to draw, how do you creatively like make that stand out? And I think in the future, like it's going to be super competitive, right? So that's why I'm saying like now, if you're an anime IP, like now is the time, because it's not too competitive yet. It's still competitive,
right?
But not like we're not competing with One Piece right now. We're just competing against like, yeah.
Awesome.
Lastly, I guess if there's any projects out there that want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you?
The best way is my Twitter. So if you just find me on Patrick Dang on Twitter, you can send me a DM. I do check my DMs. And if you need help with any type of marketing or creative, that's the place to go. You can reach out to me directly and we can talk. If you're looking to collab in some capacity, as we have an upcoming, mint coming up, hit me up too, and then we can see what we can do.
Awesome.
Where are you going next? Like what
Damn.
city? So they can DM you and meet you.
Yeah, where are we going to see you next?
Yeah, I'm going to be at IVS. With you guys going to IVS, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. So, Moon Zero actually will be at IVS as well. And yeah, man, I love Japan. Like last year I went there like 3 times. So this year I'm trying to go to Japan more. And in a way, like business is a way to design the lifestyle you want, in a sense. And so I'm glad that, I'm able to combine like crypto, NFTs, anime, the things I like. And like when I go to Japan, it's for work, but also I enjoy that too. So it's almost like work and vacation at the same time. And I would really recommend like people not think too much about like just how much money they want to make, but also how they want to live and how what they do for a living can support that.
Right.
Because like at the end of the day, it's like, money is important, but it's like how you live is more important, right?
Yeah.
Like money is a means to an end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Exactly. I'm not saying no to Kyoto for sure. If you want to know what we're doing in Kyoto, we have more teasers and information in the next couple episodes. So stay tuned.
Ooh, very cool.
Yeah, so we're gonna be there first week of July. So we'll see Patrick there as well. If you want to hit us up, do let us know.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks a lot for being on the show. Great to hear from you. Great to see you again.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys later.
We'll see you guys next week.